Okay, am I back?
Yes, they're back.
Okay,
We
it
lost
dropped.
you for a bit. I shared a snippet of your background with
I
them, so
heard
you
you.
can go ahead and tell us your professional story, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into it.
So I am formerly a corporate employee. So I did, I would say I had a 15 or so year corporate career before transitioning into full-time entrepreneurship. And basically, as a corporate employee, I use my salary to build wealth. So,
Right.
as you may have mentioned, a lot of times I hear echo. Do you hear echo? Is it okay?
It's okay on my end.
Okay.
On my end, going?
I hear myself echoing, but it's okay if it sounds okay to you.
Okay.
Um, you all can drop in the chat if you hear an echo. But yes, I was saying that like a lot of times in terms of building wealth, we're taught that maybe you have to be a business owner or a real estate investor, a stock trader, things like that. And we're not often empowered or taught how we can build wealth using our 9 to 5 job, our 9 to 5 salary. So that's what I really like to, teach others. I really like to empower, employees that they can use their salaries to build wealth just like everyone else can. So there's a path for us too. Is like what I usually like to say. Okay.
Okay, lovely. So, guys, I'll just be muting my mic in between us chatting to avoid the bit of echo that you may hear, right?
Okay.
So, thank you so much, April, for sharing a bit of your background with us. That is, I think, great ground for us to jump in to our first question. Yeah. So, where would you advise someone to begin if they're thinking about evaluating their year, and what are some questions we should ask ourselves?
So I would say definitely start with looking at your goals. And then from there, you would look at your numbers. So if it happens that you didn't set goals, I know maybe this may be new for some of us. So hopefully after our conversation today, going forward for the new year and the years, to come, you will have financial goals for the year. But like, let's say if you didn't set goals, then that's okay. You can still look at your numbers and look at the story that your numbers tell. And we'll dive into that more in this conversation in terms of like how to look at your numbers, what numbers to look at. So I would say that's where you start, like look at your goals. And then you can ask yourself some overarching questions to start, and then you can get more specific with your questions. So some of the overarching questions you can ask is, did I meet my goals for the year, the financial goals that I set? And then if not, can you pinpoint what contributed to you not meeting those goals? And then also, how does that factor into the goals for the coming year? So if there's something that maybe you didn't accomplish this year, maybe it'll roll into the next year, or is it really a priority? Maybe it wasn't a priority and maybe that's why you didn't meet it. So just looking at, I would say starting with the goals, those are overarching questions around your goals, and then start to dig specifically into your numbers and a few key areas.
That's great, excellent. I love that you pinpointed the fact that sometimes, maybe the goal that we would have set for ourselves at that point in time wasn't a priority, wasn't something that should have been prioritized. So I'm happy that, that's something that you would have highlighted because it's a mistake that we make oftentimes when setting goals. So with that in mind, why do you think it's important for us to evaluate the year that has passed? And how can this help us in future planning? Because you just mentioned that, looking back, it can help us in terms of how we're going to set goals for the coming year. So why is this important and how exactly can it help us?
So I think it's important because for one, it's going to give you clear insight into where you currently stand. So, and that clear insight is going to be really powerful, and it's going to help you to determine a few things. So one, what you did well, and that's, what you should continue to do. Maybe what you should improve, maybe you did it okay, but you need to do a little better. And then also what didn't work, like what did you not do well and what you should completely stop. So those are a few things you want to think about. And then also, it matters because it's going to help you to track your progress against your goals. So once you look at, maybe the goals you set earlier in the year, and once you evaluate how you did, you can see how you progressed against those and track that. And then also that's going to motivate you to improve your performance to achieve those goals. So for me personally, I would say tracking my numbers is what really helped me to achieve Oh, sorry, just looking at the comments. Tracking my numbers is what really helped me to achieve improvements year over year. So I think when you really aren't looking at anything, when you don't have any insight, you don't really, it's harder to improve year over year. But if you're actually taking stock of something, if you're actually putting pen to paper on something and then going back and reflecting on it and then looking at it as move forward to the next year, that's how you really make those improvements. And I also would say that this time of year that we're going into, I say especially like that last week of the year between Christmas and New Year's, that's when things naturally get quiet. And I think that's a really powerful time to sit down and do some evaluating of the year past, and then also some goal setting for the year to come. So I especially like to take that week and sit down and do, some of the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yes, I love that. Just reading Dr. Shelley's comment, she said, this conversation is inspiring accountability, April. And that is so true because just pulling out one thing that you would have said there, tracking progress. A lot of the times when we look back at our goals and we think about what we would have done for the year, we really look back at, okay, was it done or was it not done? As opposed to, did I make steps towards this goal or did I not make steps towards this goal? And I think that's something very important for us to add in when we're, looking back at our year. It's not just, okay, was it fully completed? But it's also, did you make progress towards it? And then the other thing that you said was motivation. It gives you motivation to, plan your goals for the next year. And especially just, relating it back to the tracking progress part of things. When you see how far you would have gone in the year, then okay, yes, I can take the first 3 months in the year again to just accomplish the goal that I would have set last year, So I think it's a great thing for us to implement in our tracking of our goals, So I love that. By the way, guys, while we are chatting, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the question sticker, and we're gonna get to that as soon as we're done. Yeah, because we want to answer all your questions as much as we possibly can.
Yes.
So, yes. So next question: is there a framework that we should use when we're evaluating our year? We spoke about the questions. We spoke about where we should begin, but in terms of a general framework, is there a framework we should be using?
Yeah, so I like to use the framework for evaluating my year that I use for everything else. So I teach my clients how to secure their financial foundation using what I call my millionaire money plan framework. So there are 5 key areas to your millionaire money plan, really quickly. So that's your money mindset, that's your spending plan, your debt-free plan, your cash reserves plan, which is a fancy way of saying your savings, and then your wealth building plan. So if you kind of look at your numbers in all of those key areas, that's going to be a great way to assess your year. So evaluating, and I think this is something that I personally do, and then also something that I advise my clients to do. So first, of course, as we talked about, starting with goals. So when you're assessing your finances, it should be through the lens of, I would say, your top 1 to 2 goals. I'm very big on focusing, like focus intensity. I feel like if you have your hands in a million different pots, if you're spread thin, trying to do a bunch of different things at the same time, you're not really going to accomplish much. So I always like to have my clients focus on one, if possible, but just maybe 1 or 2 top things in their finances. So what do you really want to use money as a tool right now to accomplish? So, if you're looking at maybe your top 1 or 2 goals, so let's look at how we track against those goals. So say, for example, one of your goals was to eliminate, your credit card and your student loan debt. So like to eliminate that. And then once you, finish with that, depending on how much you had, maybe your next goal was to start to build up your, cash reserves, your savings. So, taking that maybe 1 to 2 top goals you have for the year, and let's look at how you did against those. What was your debt amount? How much did you pay off? How much did you still have to pay off? How are you tracking? How much did you save? Or how much did you commit to, paying off monthly? How are you tracking along those things? So Whatever, the goal, it could be saving for a house, increasing your retirement investing, whatever your goal is. Let's just look at those maybe one or two top things that you're doing, and then how you track against that goal you set. And then I would say also that how you measure how you're doing in that area will also kind of tell you how other things fall in line. So if you're going to focus on, as I said, like maybe debt elimination right now, then that's going to shape how you make your spending decisions, what you do with your money, because that's the main thing you're focusing on. And then the other things are going to have to take more of a backseat or less of a priority at the time. I would say the next area, if we move on like through that framework I talked about, then we get to your spending or your budget. So, what you want to look at in that area is two things: your income and your expenses. So income, was your income sufficient? Were you able to, take care of your needs, meet your needs? Was there surplus left over to actually achieve your financial goals? So that surplus is what's really powerful in money management, because that surplus is what is going to help you to eliminate your debt. That's what's going to help you build up savings. That's what's going to help you increase your investing. As an employee, as someone with a career or profession, what you do with that surplus. So, making sure that your income is sufficient, and, given that you have enough surplus, or that you were able to create enough surplus. So you want to look at that. And then looking at your expenses, you want to consider how you're spending. So, were you out of, pocket in your spending? Were you too high in some of your spending throughout the year? Look at that. Of course, I think another important thing to look at, just if you get granular within your expenses, is subscriptions. That's one of those big gadgets. I would say subscriptions and eating out are like the two areas that, my clients struggle with, and they kind of find that they're
I'm guilty of that too.
they kind of find that they're a little heavy in those areas. So, those are two big things to look at. So then if we go to the next category of debt, I see some yeses in the comments. Oops, some eyes. All right. So another thing, the next category, debt. So what you want to look at there is, have you established a debt-free plan? Yes, I love that. Raise your hand if you're guilty. Raise your virtual hand in the comments if you're guilty of, being a little heavy in those two areas of, what did we say? Eating out, your food, and then your subscriptions. So if we look at the debt category, then one of the things you want to look at there is, how you establish a debt-free plan, how you're tracking against it. And then also, right now we're in the holiday spending season where, unfortunately, I hope people aren't incurring debt for holiday shopping, but that's something you want to look at. What does your holiday spending look like? Are you incurring debts? If you are using any cards, which I would make sure you're paying off that card when the end of the month comes, or the new month begins. So looking at that, another thing you want to assess is your credit score. And I would say, just for that, just make sure, and remember, well, I know this is the case in the US. I'm not sure about like maybe some of the Caribbean countries, but we have something called annualcreditreport.com, where you're entitled to like a free credit report each year from our credit reporting bureaus. So you can get one. You can go through that site, or you probably can go directly to Experian, or goodness, I'm drawn to Experian, whatever. The three main credit bureaus. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on them, but you can go and get a free credit report. So if you haven't already pulled your credit, a lot of times people that have credit cards and things, they're kind of always giving you like a monthly update on what your numbers and everything look like. But beyond just looking at your credit score, you want to actually pull your credit report. Just make sure there's nothing unexpected on there. So if you haven't already done that, then the end of the year is a good time to pull that up and, take a look at that. Okay, in terms of your savings, that category, you want to look at, have you built up your safety net of savings? And, your savings accounts balances, what do they look like? Have you tapped into anything? Do you need to replenish anything? And then also, how much more do you need to save if you, haven't reached maybe that set emergency fund? If you are on that step where you're in the place in your finances where you're ready to have built an emergency fund. If you haven't built it yet, how much more do you need to add to it? How long it's going to take? So that's something that you can kind of look at, where are you with your savings? Another thing, I would say the last couple of categories to look at is investments. So just check your balances. And I would say investing is something, my investment balances or my accounts aren't something that I check obsessively. I don't check them very frequently because, for one, I'm a long-term investor, and I'm also a buy and hold investor. So I don't want to, I think a lot of times we can look at stuff too much, be like too hawkish on it. We can put our hands in it, mess things up. So I think as long as you have an investment plan that you're executing and that you're letting it play out, then, let it do its thing. Don't, put your hand in the pot and mess things up. But so I don't think you need to look at that too frequently. I would suggest like maybe quarterly. And I know we'll talk about frequencies and stuff in a minute, but so end of year is a good time to look at your investment accounts, your balances. If you are saving retirement, ensure that your retirement savings are on track, or work with someone to create a plan to get them on track if you're not on track, or if you don't even know what it means for us to be on track or not. Get some help in that area. And then the last two categories would be net worth. So with this, I would say your net worth is like your financial report card. So I think it's a great at the end of the year to look at your net worth overall. I have a net worth tracker that my clients use, and they kind of plug all their stuff into it. They look at their net worth, so they can see, look back at what it was at the beginning of the year. Now as we're ending the year, let's see where we're ending. So that's a great thing to look at. And then also, how does it compare to last year? So I always like to see, like, where does my net worth at the end of this year look, against last year as well? So you have to build up that history of tracking it so you can, have some data to look at. And then also just think about where would you like to see it reach in the coming year? And then last area I would say is giving. So I think another thing that I like to look at or assess at the end of the year is my giving. So add up your charitable contributions, and I kind of will go through my my spending plan, my budget, because I kind of have it, tallied out month to month, and I'll look at my spending throughout the year. Tally what my numbers are. Do I want to make some additional contributions? And then think about which organizations I want to make contributions to. So I'll kind of sit down and keep a list of organizations that are near and dear to me, so when I'm ready to make contributions, I can pull from that list. And then, so again, like, you may not be working, it depends on where you are in your financial situation. You may not be working on all these specific things at the same time. Like if you're focused on debt, then you may not be focused on saving, or, things like that. So, based on your situation, what things are applicable to you, it may not be the same each year. So you look at, your main, as I talked about in the beginning, those top priorities you have for your finances, your goals, look at where you are with those. And then that's going to help you to know like where your focus is and what you should prioritize for the year coming.
Yeah, I love that. That was very comprehensive, and it's also a good, as we said at the beginning, a good framework that we can use for like evaluating other goals outside of financial goals. Because you touch on certain questions that you can ask yourself, like, how long this is going to take, like where am I at right now, and how long is it going to take for me to reach there, and then of course plan accordingly the steps that you need to take. And I love the part about not looking at your investments too often, because oftentimes we get frustrated when we keep going back and going back and going back to see where we're at right now. And that especially, like, it's ringing a bell in my head about like fitness goals. Sometimes we want to weigh ourselves every single day, and then you realize there's no change, and then you get discouraged, and then it throws off a lot of things. As we said, it messes things up a bit. So that was very comprehensive, and I think a good plan that we could implement in other areas of our life as well. So just diving in a bit more in terms of the financial aspect of things, you have shared that behavior change is a key to financial success. How can evaluating our money habits like that you just went through, how can that help us in financial, how can evaluating the past year, our money habits in the past year, how can that lead to financial success in the future? And what habits specifically should we be evaluating, and how do we know when to change them?
So, so I have when we talk about behavior change, I have a free resource that you guys can grab. It's in the link in my bio. It's called the 7 Levels Deep Worksheet. And that's going to help you to uncover like your deepest motivation for wanting to change your financial situation in the first place, or your financial behavior. So a lot of times I find that like, if you aren't sticking with your financial plan, or what you say you want to do, is one, because your motivation isn't deep enough, or you aren't clear enough about it, or kind of like your vision for the future isn't clear enough or compelling enough. So those things are important. So if you grab that, that's going to help step you through getting into that deep why, to know why you're even doing this in the first place. And then that's going to help you with uncovering some of those behavior changes you need to make. And also actually help you to stick with your money plan. So I would say that the exercise that we just discussed, and like looking at your numbers in all those key areas, that's also going to shape behavior change. Because once you get that insight into your numbers, once you know what you're doing with your numbers, then that's going to make you say like, hey, okay, like I'm spending a whole lot on DoorDash. I know we have the US DoorDash and Uber Eats and, all those convenience things. And I'm spending a lot on, vacations, but I say I want to be debt free. I say I want to, quote, retire early. Like, these are a lot of terms we throw around. But there's actually substance, and there's actually actions and behaviors around those things, and that shape those things and make those things possible. So seeing what you're doing with your numbers, that insight is like the first step, and then that's going to help you to know what behaviors maybe you need to change or realign to match the goals that you say you want to accomplish. And I say, in terms of the habits that you want to focus on, they're the daily habits. And I think a lot of times, people want to, skip to the quote unquote sexy stuff, like, oh, I want to, focus on investing, and I want to focus on, flipping houses and, doing all these things, but they don't have the, what I call your big muscle movements, like that 70 to 80% of just your daily management of your finances. They don't even have that under control. So if you don't have those things under control, then a lot of those other things aren't going to be possible, or you're going to maybe make money doing those other things, and then lose it. So a lot of times I say it's not about like how much you make, because really, quite honestly, if we're being honest, how much you make, that really can mean nothing if you spend it all. So it's not about how much you make, it's about how you manage what you make and how much you actually keep. So, when it's all said and done, net worth is really that number that's going to help you to know your financial health. So, and of course, if anyone, just quick explanation, net worth is your income, not your income, your assets minus your liabilities. So everything you own minus everything you owe. So, we can build up that own side, so we can, maybe buy the multiple houses and, do all these things and own stuff. But then we also have a lot of debt, like a lot of liabilities on that stuff. So, which could even give us a, net sum zero net worth or negative net worth, you just never know. So, of course, the goal is to have as high net worth as possible, because that means you actually have a lot of assets and a lot of things you own, and you're not owing a lot everywhere to everyone. So, yeah, that's what I would say in terms of the habits, like how you're managing your money, how you're managing debt, how you're saving, and, just giving yourself that cushion, that safety net, are the things that are going to really give you that solid financial foundation and give you that springboard to do all those other things once you have that solid financial, your financial house in order first.
Yeah, I love that. Especially the part about daily habits, because as you said, oftentimes we want to say, all right, I want to become a millionaire. And then you realize that becoming a millionaire takes some work, and then you're not interested anymore. And as you said, sometimes it's because your motivations behind it, you're not clear on your motivations behind it. And why I love the daily routines, the daily habits part so much is that's something that we also preach a lot about in our pursuits, right? You have to focus on your daily routine. That is what will lead you to high performance, you can't just focus on, what the big goal is, because the little things that you do daily will drive you towards that big goal.
Yeah.
So again, it comes back into, that framework that you set for yourself, and what steps you're going to take towards, achieving the goals that you set for yourself. So that leads to the other question. Though we're talking about evaluating our year, how often should we be evaluating our decisions, our habits, just looking back to say, okay, I'm on track. Because, we want to make evaluating our year easier. We can't just look back at, the year at the end of the year. Because oftentimes you forget, if you don't track, you forget what you have set for yourself at the beginning of the year. So how often should we be doing that?
Yeah, because you definitely have to do some of the stuff along the way. First of all, so you don't feel so overwhelmed at the end of the year, but then also that's so that you have data to evaluate. So one of the main things, one of the first things or most frequent things you need to track, and you're going to come up with a cadence that works for you somewhat around some of this stuff, but here are some best practices or recommendations. So in terms of your expenses, and then your overall spending, I would say you want to track that bi-weekly. So you want to do a monthly budget, definitely. So a monthly budget, but then in terms of like how you're executing, because your budget is your plan. And I actually like to refer to it as a spending plan. That's what I call it in my program. That's what, I call with my clients your spending plan. So you're creating that spending plan each month, and it's just that strategic roadmap for what you're going to do with money for that month. And, but that's the plan. And then you have to track how you're executing that plan. So how you actually spending money. You say you're going to spend, this on this amount on this, but what did you actually spend? And I tell my clients to try to do that at least bi-weekly, to track their spending and their expenses, because if you let it, get too far gone, then you're not going to want to go back and do it. So my first recommendation is just kind of your expenses and spending track bi-weekly if possible, no more than weekly, no more than monthly. Your budget or your spending plan, of course, do that monthly. Another thing you want to track is your investments on a quarterly basis. As I mentioned, you don't want to interfere too much and sabotage things. So I would say, keeping track of them or updating your numbers if you have a network tracker every, quarter, is a good number. And then overall, my network tracker, everything, combined together, I like to do a frequency of quarterly for that as well, but no less than twice a year. So I'll admit it's not always quarterly for me. Sometimes, maybe every 6 months I'll go in and update my network tracker. It just depends. But quarterly is a good cadence. I try to keep that cadence as much as possible. So yeah, those are the main things that you want to, update, and then how frequently you update them. And then of course, some of those things, they're comprehensive, so they're going to encapsulate other things like your network tracker. Your network tracker is going to, be keeping track of your debt and your assets and your savings and all that. That's going to all be encapsulated in there.
Yeah, that's definitely, quarterly, as Dr. Shalian said, is so much less intimidating as opposed to tracking at the end of the year and then going too deep in every single day. You're sitting down tracking, everything that
there's going to be a lot to do at once, and you're probably not going to do it.
Yeah, because when you get overwhelmed, you're like, yeah, no, sorry, that's it. So that's good. Quarterly, I think, is a good basis for us to look back on all the goals that we would have set and, evaluate what might need to change, evaluate what habits you need to improve on, and then see how, as you said, you would have, how you would have progressed as the year also progressed. So that's very, very important. Guys, just saying one more time, because we're winding down our side of things. If you have any particular questions, do drop it in the question sticker. And we will address it as soon as we're done. And again, we're winding down, so within 5 minutes, we would be checking the question sticker to see if, we haven't addressed anything that you would have wanted to know, especially for those that would have jumped in a bit late, right? So we chatted a lot about the financial aspect of our life and how we're going to, what steps, what actions, the framework that we should use in terms of evaluating our year. What other aspects do we need to track, or should we be tracking or evaluating at the end of the year that will also kind of tie into our financial habits? Because it doesn't stand alone. It will filter into other areas of our life. So what other aspects of our life should we be evaluating?
Yeah, I mean, and just in terms of being, a whole person. I mean, some of these things may tie into your finances, but then some of these things are just, you're a person, you're a full person, a whole person. So there's just other aspects of yourself that you need to care for, and assess, take inventory, take stock of how you're doing and maybe how you need to change. So I would say first and foremost, always is going to be, your relationship with God. So, that should guide everything else you're doing. And especially during these times, right now, I think that personal relationship is more important than ever. So just, knowing how you are there and, any changes you need to make to deepen that relationship. Another area, of course, is health. I think this is an area that so many of us struggle with. I would say myself included, just in terms of, just being as active as I should be, eating, the way I should, just things like that. So I think that's an area that, we can take stock of. We can figure out what we need to do. I think what I'm figuring for myself is that while I want a gym membership, because I've just been like maybe exercising outside, walking, or just watching YouTube videos to exercise. I think for one, I need to get a gym membership, and I think I also need to get a personal trainer. I just feel like I need that accountability. I need that just someone that I know I have to go meet this person, and it's not just all on me. So I think, for 2024, a personal trainer is something that I feel like I need. But then just also health and also in nutrition, if I can get some kind of nutrition plan from someone, that would be great as well, because I feel like, I don't know, I just kind of struggle trying to figure it out all on my own in those areas. So that's something that I'm even thinking about taking stock of. So health is another area. And then other relationships you have with people. So family, friends, family, friends, business, career, whatever relationships you have. Is there anything, anyone or anything you need to carve out more time for? Anything that you need to spend less time? Anyone, you need to spend less time with? Things like that are also things I'm personally thinking about. And then I would say career, of course, is always something that we should assess. So, do you need more work-life balance? I know some people don't really believe in that phrase, but where do you stand with that? How do you need to differ or change things in that area? Maybe do you need to decrease your income as well? So I know that's something we talked about at the top. Do you have enough income to fuel your financial goals, to fuel the life you want to live? Do you need to increase your income? Or even not even if it's a job change or like maybe a raise, but even maybe a side job. Like, do you have some financial goals you're working on, and maybe you want to do like a side job for a cash surge, to take care of some financial goals. So, things like that, I would say, are other areas, amongst the many that we want to also look at as we're wrapping up a year and then going to the next one.
Yeah, I love that, because a lot of the times, all as I said before, like all aspects of our life also kind of filter into the financial. And one thing that you said that I know is very important for us as well as advocates is evaluating your relationships with people, and deciding who should be in and who should not be in. Because a lot of the times, the people that are in your life, they will affect or impact the goals that you would have set for yourself. Because, for example, if you, one of your financial goals is to eat out less, and you have a friend who is legit every single week she wants to go out, and she says, yeah, let's go here, let's go there, and you just along for the ride without, fully evaluating, okay, how is this impacting the goals that I would have set for myself, And you may not have to drop the friend. You might just have to say, girl, I can't do it, and
Yeah.
reframe that.
And also, I mean, understanding that, we have seasons of life. And I actually have a client that is dealing with this particular thing. So, she has a season right now where she's trying to, just really get a tighter control, around her finances. And she has some things she needs to do financially. And one of her biggest fears was how her friendships were going to change because, she's so used to traveling and brunching and doing all these things. And it's like when she has to maybe forego or pause some of that stuff for the time being, she's concerned about her friendship suffering. So, I mean, that's real. Those are real things, but it's like if they're truly your friend should want to support you in the goals that you have for yourself, and understand that, sometimes we have a season where, life may look a little different for us, but, they should rock with you through that season and be there on the other side. So, but yeah, when you said that, that made me think about how some relationships kind of do change, as we experience different things in life.
Yeah, yeah. I love Rachel said I walk in with my lunch in those days out. Yes, for sure. The days that you need to go out, and whether you set a goal for yourself where it's okay, I want to eat healthier, and you know that where you're going, you might be tempted to indulge in unhealthy food. Walk with your lunch. If you're really serious about it, you are going to put in the work, and as we would have talked about before, you really have to look at your motivations behind the goals that you would have set for yourself, right?
Or even,
So,
I like to do walk and talks with people. Like, sometimes we want to get together with friends and our go-to is always food. So let's go to lunch or restaurant. But like I started meeting up with friends and like, let's go for a walk. So I call them walk and talks. But I would say meet up with people around activities as well, not just like food.
yeah, I love that, especially in the Caribbean, like in Trinidad and Tobago, especially. We love to say, "Let's go on the avenue," or let's go for dinner." That's something that we often indulge in ourselves. So I love that idea in terms of doing meetups with your friends for activities as opposed to just always going out to eat. So I just want to touch on a question that we got from that Dr. Shellyan raised in. Okay, no. Okay, so for some reason I can't pin the questions, so I'm just gonna read this question, and it kind of filters into what do you call it? We were talking just now about different aspects of our life that we should be evaluating to make better decisions in the year, right? And how it filters into even our financial goals. Oftentimes, right, we have chatted a lot about even the numbers and tracking the numbers, but people get turned off sometimes when we talk about numbers. And I think it's generally because we don't often talk about money a lot, especially in the Caribbean. It's something that, it's kind of taboo in families, especially. So you don't know what salary your family is making, you don't know what financial decisions they're making until they end up in a place where they need assistance, right? So how else can we evaluate just the different aspects of our life that's non-numerical? And even when it comes to the money aspect of things, as opposed to specifically tracking money, is there another way that we could track progress? Like, for example, how many times we went out as opposed to, how much we spent?
Mm-hmm. So what was the question? You said what are other ways to track?
Yeah, how else can we evaluate the other aspects of our life that we just mentioned, that are non-numerical? So we would have chatted a lot about, tracking the numbers, but how else can we evaluate other aspects of our life that are non-numerical, that are not financial?
Yeah, so I think so one of the first areas I deal with my clients, we start with money mindset. So I think that there's a lot of limiting beliefs, like a lot of trauma. I don't want to overuse but I just feel like there's a lot of baggage we have around money. So I think, other things that are not just maybe numerically based that we can track or see our progress is what our relationship with money looks like. So, some people don't even like opening up their bank accounts. Like they don't even like logging in and looking at it. Like they don't like to do anything related to money. They don't really like to talk to money. It's a very sore area for them. So, so I think is, how, but the thing is, I think as we start to face money and interact with it and have like an actual relationship with it, like an actual living, like exchange relationship, because your interaction with money, it is actually a relationship. And it's something that just continues throughout your life. So once we actually begin to engage in that relationship, I think a lot of times that those feelings that we have around money will change. They will, ease up. They will get better. But just tracking like how you actually feel about money, like how much angst you have, if that's being resolved, like are you actually able to look at your numbers and face them? Also, are you able to then, do things like give? I've had a person where she had such a fear-based relationship with money that she didn't actually give. So I think once she got to the place and she knew that she was making progress where she actually was giving more, and she didn't feel like she had to hoard it all. So there are just different things that I feel like we can track in terms of our relationship with money or our progress with money, just even in terms of like the actual relationship and our connection to money and how we feel about it. um, I see Rachel said she started looking at hers every day to get closer to understanding where it goes. It helps her to feel a connection with it as well. Yeah, exactly. Once you actually start to interact with it, you'll find, I mean, it may seem counterintuitive because we think that we just bury our heads in the sand is going to make it go away, but it doesn't. I feel like what actually helps it to get better is confronting it. Dealing with it, not that confrontation is, negative. Like that's, it's healthy. So I think that that's a way that we can. She said it's scary at first. Yeah, it is. It is, but it does get better.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of the other aspects of our life that we spoke about that are not numerical, how can we evaluate it? What steps can we take? What habits can we track like that?
So areas of our life that are not numerical, like, are you like not related to money? So do you mean like health? Are you talking about things like that,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
um? So I mean, of course, that's not my area of expertise, but in terms of like, I would say, with health, I mean, one thing that I am tracking, yes, it is, it's like, as you mentioned, like frequency. So I do track, well, one thing, getting something that helps you track it instead of just keeping everything in your head. So I have a Fitbit. I mean, I know some people use an Apple Watch, but that Fitbit, like, that's really a behavior changer. Like, you may not realize, but like that really has changed my behavior. Like it reminds me to get up and move. I actually have a goal in there that's tracking how many days of the week I'm, exercising, my water intake. Like those are actually driving behaviors, because I think anything that holds us accountable helps to drive behavior. So, doing something like getting any area of life that you're looking to improve or make changes, get something that's going to hold you accountable in that life. So, I mean, in that area. So, like for me, it was the Fitbit. Um, and I would say another thing, I know what people want to drink more water, like they buy those big things that like tell you the ounces. But like just anything where you can measure and you can actually get accountable. And then also like if you need an accountability partner just in life in a particular thing you're doing or a particular area, those are important. Like having a person that you can, tag up with, you guys can trade what goals you're working on, hold each other accountable. Or if you need, community or a coach or something, like getting a coach. I mean, a lot of times, that can help you to go further, faster or just further overall. So just knowing what you need and then just seeking help in that particular area is really important. Myself included, like I know, as I mentioned before, that I'm not really reaching my goals on my own in terms of my fitness. So I've decided that I need to get a gym membership and I need to get a personal trainer. So just, I would say, taking those steps, whatever that particular area is, found accountability. I think that's one of the biggest ways.
Yeah, most definitely. Accountability is very important because sometimes when we're left alone, we don't do it, as you said, you know. So yeah, that's very important, and I like that. You know, you tied it back even into yes, tracking it, but not necessarily focusing so much on the numbers, but focusing on hitting the goal. You know. So I love that. So everyone, this has been such an amazing live, April. I have had such a great time chatting with you and have learned so much um, with regards to this. Now, I'm going to just, I see one more question and we can probably touch on that and then we can close off. Maria says, when our goal is to make more money, how should we evaluate new opportunities, specifically when your immediate response to the opportunity isn't a hell yes?
Um,
So she's saying, when our goal is to make more money, how should we think about new opportunities that come by to, I guess, make more money when it isn't an immediate yes from us?
well, I mean, I think that's an important. An important gut check, if you will. I'm never going to do anything driven, by money for the sake of money. So, if it isn't a yes, then there's a reason why it isn't a yes. So I would say you need to sit with that and evaluate what that really means. And I would say, seek to make more money in ways that align with you, your values, your priorities, and then also what feels good for you, what isn't a no for you, what isn't a check in your spirit. I would say never, do something or go with something that doesn't feel all for the sake of money. And also, even if it's just like right now, we're kind of ending the year. For me, I just kind of feel like I always feel like at the end of the year, I want to get more introspective, internal, like I want to do less external. So you don't even have to have a reason. Like it could just be you just don't want to right now. Like it's okay to say no, to things. So I think that that really matters. And I would never say go against, you feeling like a reservation around something just for money.
Yeah, I love that. Sometimes we really have to check back in with our guts. But I also think sometimes it's important to know, and this is what you would have touched on in terms of just evaluating why it's a no. Sometimes we really just have to think about, okay, am I just saying no because of fear, or I'm scared to push myself a little? Sometimes we need to know when we need to push ourselves a little, as opposed to just just understanding that a gut feeling is a gut feeling, and then just where we have reservations about doing things. So
Yeah,
I love that, there's a balance.
yeah, of course, make sure that imposter syndrome isn't showing up as well. Yeah, great.
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So April, one last thing before we leave, how can everyone stay in touch with you?
So you can connect with me here on Instagram, April the Money Coach. So that's where I share my wealth building tips. And then also in terms of the workplace financial wellness that I do, if you work for a company and you feel like your company could benefit from workshops or lunch and learns, you can connect with me. Of course, always send me a DM here, but also on LinkedIn. I'm also April the Money Coach on LinkedIn. And then also as I talked about going through these different areas and assessing your, your numbers, I have a free, what do you call it? I guess I can say a free, free resource in my bio. It's called the Millionaire Money Checklist, and it actually has these 5 areas. So your spending plan, your debt, your savings, your investing, your goals, all of that. So it kind of sets, and so that can help you with, starting to track your numbers and figure out your goals for the next year. You can actually step through that worksheet and, and start to get yourself. I mean, I don't know if you'll have the historical data depending on, what you guys have already done, but it'll help you to start to look at the numbers from this past year, but also set you up for the future year. So if you want to grab that, it's in my bio here on Instagram, the Millionaire Money Checklist.
Yes, so thank you so much. I will definitely be jumping in at that resource and going and evaluating my money habits and that kind of thing. So thank you so much, April, for your
Thank
time. As
you.
everyone has said in the chat, it has been definitely an informative session, and I really appreciate your
Thank
insights.
you. It's fun.
Yes, have a great
All
night.
right, you too.
Bye.